The Still Loading podcast is brought to you by the wonderful people on Patreon. Amazing people like Sang H, Red from the Kaito and Red Show, Parallax Puddles, Mike from the Old Switcheroo podcast, Stephen P, Gilmer, Pib Extra, Melissa S, Ryan K, Matt aka Stormageddon, Doug from the Nostalgia Marcanon podcast, Kevin from the Bit by Bit Foundation, and Mr. Biscuits have all been wonderful enough to support the show over there. So if you would also like to get your name read at the beginning of an episode along with a bunch of other goodies, go over to patreon.com/stillloadingpod and check out everything it has to offer. On this episode of Still Loading, From Pixels to Prose. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this new episode of the Still Loading podcast. I am your host, Josh Koval, and today's episode, I have a returning guest to the show who's being interviewed. This guest has been on the show 2 times prior, once for the Final Fantasy Draft, and then most recently, just a couple months ago, less than a year ago, for the Super Nintendo retrospective. But now she is here to get the Still Loading interview treatment in earnest. Joining me today is Nadia Oxford. Nadia, how are you doing today?
I am doing great. Thank you for having me. In fact, I'll be a Tony the Tiger and say I'm doing great.
Great. Nothing better, especially, like with one of the topics I have questions for you about. So Tony the Tiger might fit into that, and I'll explain in just a moment. For those who don't know what I'm talking about with the title of this episode, From Pixels to Prose, Nadia wrote a book, and it is a goddamn fantastic book. And I'm not just saying that because I've had you on the show a few times. You've seen on Blue Sky, I've been posting quotes from your book periodically because I found it endlessly amusing. It's really funny. One of the sections is about fan fiction, and that just got me thinking about Tony the Tiger fan fiction that I'm sure exists somewhere.
Oh yes, I'm gonna have to check AO3 and just see, like, oh my god, 10,000 oh holy crap, more than Harry Potter, what?
Who knew that Tony the Tiger's lore ran so deep?
Indeed.
That's so funny. So we're here to talk about your upcoming book, From Pixels to Prose, What Video Games Taught Me About Storytelling, published by Retro Games Books. Retro Game Books, for those who don't know, is owned by Brian Rigsby. Brian was on the show just a few months ago, but not to talk about his company or anything like that. He was on for Super Mario Bros. 2. So shout out to Brian for setting me up with a review copy for this. And thank you once again, Nadia, for joining me. This is going to be a good time.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Looking forward to it.
So to kick it off, Nadia, how long has this book been percolating in your head? How long were you thinking of writing something along this lines? It's a very personal book in that, a lot of video game books, kind of in the same vein as like what I do with my show, where it's like, here's a retrospective on a specific game. You might get some personal anecdotes or like morals out of it, but this is specifically like a very personal, almost memoir. Well, that makes it sound like you're dying. Not a memoir, but a personal book about video games and your love for it and what it has, like it says in the title, what it taught you about storytelling. So how long has this book been kind of mulling around in there?
It's funny. It was kind of a spur of the moment thing when I had another book going on and that deal fell through and I was pissed off and I said something on Twitter and Brian, who was following me, said, hey, you know what? Why don't you write something for us? And I was thinking about it and it's like, okay, yeah. I just kind of came up with the idea of writing about like what video games taught me about storytelling, just to kind of throw out the subtitle out there. I guess it's because I just feel so strongly about how video games can be used as a tool to like educate, especially in terms of like as a fictional, as a kind of like as a way to train people how to write fiction. And I proposed that topic, and I started to write the first draft. In fact, I wrote pretty much the whole first draft, and it was edited by Justin, who is really excellent. And actually, the book had a little bit more of an educational bent to it, with like kind of like maybe a half and half. And Justin was one who said, "Well, you know what? Why don't you make it more personal? Because that's honestly like the stuff I'm most interested in here." And it's not always easy because it's making yourself vulnerable and whatnot, but people seem to really vibe with the story so far. So I'm glad I made that decision. Just kind of get naked.
I love that. I'm glad you went more personal. Specifically, like even in the like, I took a couple notes. I have like a list of questions and a list of just like random observations that when I
Mm.
remembered to actually write them down, I wrote them down. Um, One of them was that the first fantasy series you ever got into was Narnia, and
It sure was, yeah.
that resonated with me as an evangelical child growing up. Because man, that was mine too. That was my first fantasy series I ever got into. Unlike you, I did not read them backwards, though. You talk
I
about that
read
in
them
the book.
backwards. Yeah, yeah, that's
I
pretty good.
So you read it with The Last Battle being the first book that you read.
It was, and as I said in my book, like I had no idea what was going on because I'm Jewish. I didn't know anything but the Revelations when I was like 10 or whatever. I read the
God
first
bless you.
book. Actually, I have a brief question for you. So I know that C.S. Lewis is probably like in evangelical families. C.S. Lewis is probably more permissible than say Harry Potter. I know it's the same thing with Lord of the Rings because
Yes.
Tolkien is a big Christian,
Hmm.
but C.S. Lewis has a very interesting look on the afterlife, which The Last Battle is all about. In that there's no blood sacrifice, isn't really a thing. Blood redemption, I mean, like it says very specifically that good deeds get you into heaven, not the blood of Christ specifically, or even like good deeds are counted as being cleansed by the blood of Christ. Like
Mm.
he is not like you only go to heaven if you say these magic words. That is not C.S. Lewis's philosophy. And I know a lot of not every evangelical family, but some, especially these days, many evangelical families feel like there is one way to heaven and you have to do it this way, and anything suggesting otherwise is heresy. So that wasn't a problem in your family? Just curious.
So you bring up a lot. Oh man, there's a lot of stuff I could get into off of that. So
I bet.
one, I'm showing my hand a little bit. I still have not finished the Narnia series.
Oh, you should
I've
read Last
actually
Battle.
been reading it slowly. That I don't consider that a spoiler, so don't worry. Everything's all good.
Good, good.
I only have two left. I have to read A Horse and His Boy, and then I have to read The Last Battle. I started rereading the ones I had read less than a year ago, and then I started
Mhm.
reading the ones I haven't read, which was finishing Voyage of the Dawn Treader and reading The Silver Chair.
Right.
So all that I had left, I had already reading The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I'd already read Reading. That's not a word. Already read Prince Caspian, and I read The Magician's Nephew. So I had read those three prior. I read
Right.
like like halfway through Voyage of the Dawn Treader, never finished it. So then I finished it this time and read the rest, and now I'm up to The Horse and His Boy, and then I still have to start The Last Battle. So I don't know enough about my parents' reactions to that, because I don't think my mom
Hmm.
even finished it, even though she was the one that introduced me to Narnia.
Right.
Um,
Interesting.
with that said, some of the stuff you talk about, I can corroborate. I'm no longer evangelical. I'm not even. I don't think I'm even really Christian anymore. It's been a weird. It's been a weird couple of
Hmm.
years.
Of
Um,
course.
but from what I remember with it, like the way my parents describe it, my parents, I would say, are more open than most other evangelicals in the sense
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
like they weren't assholes. Like uh what my parents did teach me, though, for like the way that I was raised with it, though, was that yes, there is only one way into heaven, but one of the other things is that faith without deeds means nothing, and vice
Right.
versa. Like you can proclaim your faith and belief all you want, but your reward in heaven is not going to be great unless there's actually deeds to back up, put your money where your mouth is, essentially.
Right. Right.
And that's kind of like where that whole bit was. Because it is interesting that like C.S. Lewis kind of lands on the hill that like blood sacrifice isn't the thing. It's living out your purpose, like living as God intended, I guess.
Hmm.
Um because in Lion the Witch and the Wardrobe, he does the whole Jesus thing with Aslan. Spoiler alert for a fucking
Yeah,
60
I
plus year
didn't
old
really
book.
get that either so much. My mom is a convert, and she kind of explained it to me a little bit, and it still didn't make sense.
I mean, Aslan is the Aslan is Jesus, and he even talks about it later on in some of the other books where he goes like, Aslan will be talking to the kids, and he'll go like, "I go by a different name in your world." I'm like,
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, like, no pun intended, but Jesus Christ, like, it's just really heavy handed. In the end of Voyage of the Dawn Treader, I finished that for the first time, and it is one of the most like unnaturally random, like over like heavy-handed metaphor, not even metaphor, just like putting it right on fucking Front Street, where like
Mhm.
they go to the end of the world and they see like a lamb literally like kill itself, or a lamb die in front of them, because Jesus is the lamb that was a sacrificial lamb for our sins and blah blah blah. And then the lamb turns into Aslan. It's like,
Yes.
okay, Jesus Christ, like, holy shit, like, I get it. Jesus, like, Aslan is Jesus. You don't have to keep doing this.
As he
Um,
says, he's known by many names, and he says the
yeah.
kids basically have to learn how to use his name in the real world.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, like that's pretty much what the way I was raised in terms of like evangelical stuff. It was like, yes, like you have to, say I'm so, confess your sins and accept Jesus into your heart and all that other
Mhm.
stuff. And then, but you also have to put your actions behind it. You can't, like, saying you believe isn't enough. Like that was a big thing in my church growing up, was that like, if if can people tell you are a Christian by your actions? Because if they cannot, you are
Right.
not living how it's supposed to be, which ironically is one of the reasons I'm not really a Christian anymore, because when 2016 rolls around and all those people who say live by your actions suddenly uh, is part of a
Mm.
political movement that is very much not that. Um, that began the deconstruction, but that's my story for another day.
Right. No, that's a long, complicated story, but I totally understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, that 2016, the last 10 years have been a whirlwind to say the
They
least.
sure have, haven't they? I can't believe it's been 10 years. Jeez, man.
Hopefully not much more. Hopefully,
Hopefully,
hopefully not much more.
one way or the other.
Okay, so um, one of the things that one of the questions I had about when you were writing this is like, how did you go about recalling your own personal gaming history? Because that's a lot of this book goes almost chronologically through your life and what gaming meant to you in almost different stages. You talk about it in elementary school. One of my favorite things was that you got the plagiarism talk from your second grade teacher, and it scared you away from writing fan fiction. Like that's like video games and writing have been like in your life since elementary school, which is just amazing. Um, how did you go about like did you have a process to like work on recalling these memories? Because for myself, my memory feels like a jumbled salad. Like every time
Mm.
I try to think like excuse me, every time I try to think back about my own personal gaming memories or like experiences, unless someone like kind of prompts me for it, I can't like call it at will, because it's like
Right.
it's almost like too vast to pick anything out. So did you have a process? Did you find any struggle with it? Like what was your process going through that?
I have learned recently that I think I have a really damn good memory. I think it's actually
Mm.
unnaturally good. Not in any useful way, though. That's the problem. Like my father always used to say to me, like he'd ask me a question, and I know the answer. He's like, "Wow, your memory's really good. You're like my mom. You're like your mom." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, whatever." Uh, but I never really thought much of it because, as I kind of outlined in the book, I wasn't always the best at school. Like I actually just got a diagnosis for ADHD at 45,
Mm.
which so it gives you an idea of what I was going through my entire life. But I have, I mean, obviously, I can't recall every single thing about everything, but I can recall quite clearly things that made an impression on me. And video games having made such an impression on me, like I can see where I was at the time. I can like look back. I can remember who I was with. You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
so there are some details that are still very very clear. There are also instances where I went back and looked at certain things, like for example, the story that I talk about. That's like
Hmm.
the quote unquote novel uh, that I have. Like I actually kind of went over that again, and I wrote a chapter about that because it was like it's a story that I made that was inspired by like the games that I was playing at the time, which was Dragon Quest III. Even though it wasn't specifically a fan fiction, it was just an inspired original story.
Hmm.
So I still have that, and I was going over it, and I was like, you know what, I was onto something. What really was interesting to me is that I like my first quote unquote chapter or two were kind of like really slow, or not slow, they're very quick, like this happened, this happened, this happened, but da 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 da. But as I wrote more about these characters, I really started to get into it, and like I was really extending this universe, and I got nowhere near finished, but I did have an ending in mind. I just found that interesting that I kind of missed on that part when I was thinking about my memories, like the fact that like I really learned something when I was writing that quote unquote novel.
I feel like that's almost a part of learning is that you don't realize you're doing it until after the
Exactly.
fact, right?
Yeah.
And that must be so cool. Like I think one of the things you talked about when you were writing that novel was like you just said, the first couple chapters it was very like fast paced, like you're getting plot point, plot point, plot point. But
Mhm.
I think I remember you saying like towards the end you were like stretching out huge like swat, like there was like you stretched out a whole bunch. I forget exactly how you described it, but like what would have taken you like a chapter when you started is now like 6 chapters because you're
Yes,
really just
exactly.
kind of like letting it breathe.
Exactly. Yeah. Like the I'll go over it again in the book, but like just to give you an example, like in this story that I wrote, these kids were in a tournament and they were supposed to do these tasks. And the first task was like to fight with this other knight, and I wrote that in like 2 pages. And then like by the time I got to the second task, I hadn't even finished that one because I was really writing, like I was writing what was going on with them, what they were going through, who they were meeting, who they were talking to. It's yeah, it was a neat little evolution.
Was it fun revisiting that for you, like being able to see like what specific things you learned as you went along?
I think I described it in the book as looking at my own vomit. Um,
I mean, come on.
Basically, yeah. I mean,
It's not that bad. I'm sure it's better than anything I've written. Trust me.
no, it's not so much. I mean, just like the my very very old stuff is a
Mm,
little bit embarrassing, but it's looking like I've kind of like embraced it because it was education. It's all growth. As I say, we call that growth, but it was interesting nonetheless. Like it was interesting to go back and see like this is the way I wrote, and this is probably a good reason why I wrote the way I did because this is
hmm.
the stage I was at in my writing career. This is what I would like. One thing I forgot to well, not forgot, but I never really got a chance to talk about in the book is that it's when I was 20, I thought I was hot shit. I thought I had everything figured out in terms of writing because I was good at writing environmental stuff, but I was not good yet at writing dialogue. And that's the
Hmm.
hardest thing to learn as a writer.
I believe
So,
it.
yeah, it's an ongoing process. I'm looking back at those stories, it's just like, well, this is where it really, really began. I didn't know shit about shit.
I think that's like what every 20-year-old is, though, man. Like every
Yeah.
20-year-old, like you think you know everything, and you cannot be convinced of it otherwise.
Oh
And
God.
it's like I don't know. I have an idea for something about like I don't honestly between your book and also just other people in this space in general, Darren Hupke from Pixels and Polygons, like his
Yes.
stuff, like it's making me want to start writing it, and I have an idea for my own kind of personal little section, but it would be about
Excellent.
life in my 20s and not really knowing what I'm going to do.
Hmm.
I'm gonna
Hmm.
save this because I don't want to put it out in the universe just yet. I still have to like mull over some things, but um I can understand where you're coming from with that, with your being in your 20s and like, especially like dialogue, man. Like, how
Yeah.
writing things to sound human is so hard.
It is so hard. Like you have to listen to what other people are saying, the tones they use, the gestures they use is a very, very big thing. It's and I'm still not great at it. Like I'll never be perfect. I'll always be working on it. And I think that is the honestly the most mature thing you can say if you're a creative person. I might die before I get anywhere close to being like satisfied with where I am, and maybe
I
that's what
almost
it's all
think that
about.
makes it more fun though, right?
Kind
Like,
of
because
does,
that,
yeah.
like, I think about this with my own, with the podcast here, where it's like, I'm happy with how the show has grown over the last couple of years.
Hmm.
But like, I never want to stop feeling like there's another mountain to climb,
Of
because
course, yeah,
once you climb that last mountain, then it's kind of like, well, the ride's done,
yeah. It's
like
like,
then it's almost over, and you're on your way back down. So I don't know. I'm with you on that, though. I can
yeah,
very much relate to a lot of that. Uh, that actually kind of leads me. I'm going to jump ahead in one of my questions. Um,
sure.
how do you, for in learning to write almost through video games, do you think that learning, like using video game tropes, is or learning the tropes in video games useful to young writers? Like, is it along
Mhm.
the lines of like knowing the rules before you can break them, or is it, do you find use in kind of like, like JRPGs, you got to kill God. That's the trope.
Yeah,
Every game is somehow involving killing God or some form of Jesus. Um,
right.
so, like, do you find the tropes useful, especially to young writers, or is it something where you think you could do without?
I think if you're a young writer and you want to kind of indulge in the tropes, I think it's fine. I think that one thing I go over in the book also is that every trope is someone's first instance of seeing that trope. Be like, like, oh, we got to kill
Mm-hmm.
God. Like for our generation, I think that was Evangelion. Maybe I don't think Final Fantasy VII had the killing God element
Final
to it. Well,
Fantasy
it kind
X
of did.
did, but that
Final
was
Fantasy
about
X
it.
did. There we go. Yeah. So everyone's like, everyone goes to that first and like once, and it's so impressive the first time. And it's like that's why certain anime is always popular with kids. Like everyone, no one forgets their first time killing God. That's how I put it. And so I think like it's fine for a younger writer. I think if you're an older writer, like one thing I stress also in the book is that yes, video games can teach you how to write. They're really really great, especially for young writers who want to kind of exercise their imagination and write a narrative to go with what they're playing. But uh, like the point is to also try out other media and let that influence you as well. Like I think that's probably the healthiest thing anyone can do as any kind of creative person is just
Mm-hmm.
get inspiration from many things. Like, I mean, I love books. I'm not the biggest TV watcher or movie watcher, but books, music, certain movies, like that's those are all major inspirations for me as well.
the I think that's super important as well. Like, I remember when I was in college, I went to school for game design and simulation.
Oh, neat.
Clearly, doing a lot with that degree.
Of course.
Um, definitely in the industry. No, but one thing I will never forget: my professor, who the head of the game design program at my college, said was that you have to, like, in order to make video games, and I think this kind of can be applied to writing and storytelling, in regards to your book, is like you have to stop like playing games and you have to start making them. And one of the things that he specifically
Mhm.
says as well is like you need to be well read. You
Yes.
can't, and he said specifically, he kept citing, like, read the classics, like read everything, because
Mhm, mhm.
you need some form of framework in order to understand how to apply it to games. And I feel like kind of similar to what you were saying, where it's like you like to read things outside of video games because it's like you need to be a well-rounded person in order to get better at literally any creative
Right.
endeavor.
Yeah, that's true.
Now, one of the big portions in this book is there's a whole chapter dedicated to fan fiction, and you are a
Mhm.
big proponent of fan fiction. Now, the question
Yes.
I have is, like, I'm using fan fiction as a jumping off point. It's not directly tied to fan fiction,
Sure.
but like I said, you're a big proponent of it. You did a whole Retronauts episode on it a few years ago.
God,
I
that was so long ago, it
I,
feels like.
I remember listening to that. That was a good episode.
Oh, thank you.
Uh, you talk about in the book, though, where like fan fiction for you was like an epiphany, like
Mhm.
the, oh shit, I can do this. Like, that's not a quote
Mhm.
from the book, that's me paraphrasing, but like, this is allowed. How, for in your opinion, like, how big of a value is having that moment of like you're allowed to do this moment, like the when you finally, like, there's a door that's open and you're like, I didn't know I was allowed to do this, I can do this, like, how, like, do you think fan fiction is one of the better examples of that, or is there any other, like, what do you think the overall importance of that is?
For me personally, like fan fiction was just like the big door to that. I mentioned on in the story that I started reading fan fiction. Like I read
Mm-hmm.
God, a fan fiction in 1995, I think it was, for like Mega Man X, and it just blew me away. I mean, you look back at it now, and it's just like, okay, it's not really that well written. But at the time, when I was like 15, 16, I thought it was like incredible. Like, just that this character, like in my instance, I was inspired by a fan fiction about Zero from Mega Man X, and I was like, I just never considered even taking a character on this road to somewhere not exactly like off the road, but like more just taking what the canon that we know about them and doing
Mm-hmm.
something with it. Like at the time, I mentioned also is that I was getting on the internet, and a big lore thing going on in the Mega Man X universe at the time was Mega Man X3 saying that Mega Man X would have to fight and destroy Zero. And it was still some years until Mega Man X4 when I got on the internet. And by the time I got on the internet, everyone was writing stories about like, whoa, man, what happens to Zero? Why does he go cuckoo? Like, oh,
Mm.
it turns out he was created by Wiley. I don't know how anyone found that information at the time, but they did, and that just made things even more interesting. So, yeah, that was like me really getting the community. Like, I had been on the Final Fantasy online community, and there was like again a really great fan fiction there that I liked, but it was like the Mega Man community that really got me to start writing myself, like as well as reading fan fiction.
That's really cool, man. Like I feel like there's what is it? I when the way you wrote about it in the book really
Mm.
reminded me of there was a an episode a while ago of one of Kevin Smith's like 1,000 podcasts, um, where he talks about how he wanted to be a wanted to be a screen. It was before Clerks. It was before he even went to film school in Vancouver, and he just talks about he wants to be a film writer or a screenwriter.
Mhm.
And his sister was like, "Well, just be a screenwriter." And he goes, "Yeah, yeah, wouldn't that be cool?" She's like, "No, just do it.
Just do
Like
it.
you're a
Yeah,
screenwriter that hasn't written a screenplay yet." And
exactly.
that was the switch for him. And I can kind of like when I was reading the book, it felt like that, like you were saying, that was your switch.
Mhm.
Um, that the I don't know, man. I think it's also I think that element is super cool. And also for listeners, it's never like that switch, you never know when that's going to hit. Not that I'm like an
Yeah,
expert on it, but I can tell you like for me it was podcasting. Like that was when
right.
I'm like, "Oh shit, I can just do this." And people take it like listen, like this is weird to me in a good
Yeah.
way. Um now uh you were I touched on it a smidge earlier on in the episode, but you were for a little while scared away from writing fan fiction.
Yes, yes, I was.
Talk a little bit about that, the plagiarism talk, as you reference it in your book.
Well, I don't think my teacher meant to scare me or anything like that.
No, no.
Basically, we were in. I went to a very kind of nature-oriented school because I had a. Even though I was in the middle of a city, we had a ravine where they would like teach us how to make maple syrup and everything like that. It was actually really cool.
Very Canadian.
Very Canadian. Toronto has a lot of ravines and parks and whatnot, and we had one right behind our school, and it had like a lot of wildlife and stuff. So we did a lot of like nature education, and we were like learning about birds, I think, of Ontario, and the teacher was like, okay, everyone write a report on the robin, I think it was. And for some reason in that particular class, everyone chose to just copy like stuff directly from books, like, just like writing without understanding what they were writing. And yeah, we got the plagiarism talk from our teachers like, hey, kids, you can't do this. Like, if you go to, they had me believing that if you went to college and you cheated or plagiarized, like they would like take you out and shoot you or something. Like, they made it sound really scary. The ironic part about that is actually my mother, before she retired, she was on an academic honesty council, which makes it 10 times funnier.
I mean, who and those same people who were trying to probably push that back then are now probably promoting AI, who
Oh
does the
God.
exact thing. Anyway, that's too topical. We can get off that. Um, Something else that really resonated with me about your book is you talk about how Donkey Kong and Mario showed you that stories could be told in games,
Hmm.
and then later on Dragon Quest showed you what games could be.
Right.
So what? I know this could be a large can of worms, and I'm more than willing to open it. But like, talk about like your love of Dragon Quest and how it relates to storytelling, because that's something that I really enjoyed reading in the book. Just kind of how you explored through the Dragon Quest series, how it was so hard for you to even get a copy of them for so long. I think specifically three you mentioned it was really hard to find a copy. You had to rent it a lot.
Yes, Dragon Quest. When I first played it, by that point, of course, I was always like a storyteller, and I loved to read stories and whatnot. And it was Dragon Quest that really made me say, "Oh my god! Like there's like a book inside of a game. This is incredible." And I mentioned that a lot of my friends, God bless them, even though they, they're not dumb. They like to read themselves. They were just like, "Why would you want to read in a video game? Like that's a weird thing to want to do." It's just not, not everyone loves to read for pleasure, and that's exactly what RPGs could allow me to do.
Mm-hmm.
Dragon Quest One, I know that we obviously had that glut of cartridges because of that. Nintendo really tried very hard to make Dragon Quest a thing in North America with Dragon Warrior. I don't even remember if the promotion ran in Canada, to be honest with you, where you could get like a free copy of Dragon Quest if you got like the Nintendo Power magazine.
Mm-hmm.
But either way, I did play the first game, and it was more common, much more common than 2, 3, or 4. 4 I never even saw until I went to like retro game stores and like shows and whatnot when I was an adult. Yes, we had a rental store, and I can recall exactly where it was. And I still live kind of close-ish to the area, and that store, it was independent, and it had like Dragon Quest 2, Dragon Quest 3, and
Mm-hmm.
it was 3 that I rented most of all from them. And that was kind of a patchwork affair because I had to take turns with my brothers. So he also did week-long rentals, as opposed to, I think, like more corporate stores at the time tended to do like 2, 3 nights, and that's not something you could really do for an RPG. Even a week is not a lot of
Yeah.
time. So
Especially for those old Dragon Quest games, man. Like
yes.
I played Dragon Quest 3 for the first time like 2 years ago, and it was the Super Famicom fan
Hmm.
translation port. But
That's a
like,
good port.
oh, I mean, I felt I always feel bad when people talk about how much they love Dragon Quest 3. I did not enjoy my time with it.
It's a little bit open ended, isn't it? Like
Better than
it.
two,
Oh
but
yes,
I liked one a lot, and then
that's cool.
two and three were a lot harder for me to get into. I will eventually get around to four and five. I'm very excited for five.
Yeah,
But
5 is excellent, especially on the DS if you can play that version.
I totally have a legal version of it somewhere
Hmm.
that I will probably get around to. But no, I cut you off. Sorry. Oh, you were
Oh, no problem.
talking about Dragon Quest 3.
Oh yeah, just saying like I rented that. It was kind of a patchwork affair. Uh, I couldn't even finish the game myself. What I would do is there was usually a higher level save file that I would use to kind of play the game and explore the world, and that in a way kind of helped me uh, get familiar enough with the world to base my quote unquote novel on it. And so thank you to whoever cleared the way for me, I suppose. It wasn't until like years later that I finally finished the game for myself, like start to finish, instead of just noodling around with someone else's save file and killing the bad guy over and over again for giggles.
I think you touch on that by mentioning that. It really touched on something for me, like rental etiquette.
Yeah,
You don't whoever is the farthest in the game, you don't delete that file
exactly. It's
unless
usually
it's
the
a
first.
Pokemon game. Then you're kind of screwed. But yeah.
Oh yeah, then what are you gonna do? One file is one file. But yeah, if
Mhm.
you usually it's the first file and you usually leave it alone.
I I was laughing so hard at that. I'm like, oh my god, she's not the only one that did, or I'm not the only one that did it, because that was the same thing for me. If I rented anything, whoever had like the farthest save file, like I just couldn't touch it. Just you're not allowed to
Yeah,
touch it.
yeah. It was the same with Secret of Mana. I don't know if I mentioned that in the book, but yeah, I had the same thing going on where the first file was like the game was he had finished the game, and I was just like, yeah, I'm gonna leave that alone.
Now I'm going to change gears here. I asked a little bit ago about video game tropes in video games and how they're useful to young writers. On
Hmm.
your own personal level, what is your personal favorite video game trope, and how have you incorporated it into your writing, or if you have at all?
That is an interesting question because yeah, I have gosh, I think I have a few favorite tropes, but in terms of the big ones, I go over one in the novel, sorry, the story, which is the someone asks, like someone, God, a spirit, an alien, a living comet asks humanity, "What have you done to prove your existence? What have you done to justify your existence?" And I mentioned how, like, yeah, it's so common. It's like, oh boy, here's a yet another shonen anime that asking the same question. It's like, wait a minute, that's actually a really good question. And I appreciate the fact that like Japan asks that kind of question to like little kids so early in their media. And I just have a soft spot for that one because you can really get into it in terms of the writing. Like there's answers on both sides. There
Hmm.
really is. There really is.
That is so wild, though, to me. So, like, you when you brought that up in the book, it reminded me of something else. And so, I took a screenwriting class in college.
Oh, cool.
Never really got far with it, but one of the ones we had to write like a treatment or something for our own original movie type of thing. I forget what the prompt was, but basically, I had the idea of like uh kind of, since I was still very Christian back then, the idea, it was similar, it was right up the lines of that trope, though. I think that trope, like you
Mhm.
said, of like, why does humanity deserve to exist when it causes so much harm, is like a real, that I clearly was influenced by video games and anime, because this was in college and I've been playing lots of video games and watching a lot of
Uh-huh.
anime prior to that. Basically, I don't care saying this because I'm never going to write this, as just someone give me credit for it if they decide to do it.
Uh-huh.
uh Pulling an old biblical thing where, in the Bible, God would always choose people from unexpected places to do his greatest works.
Right.
Specifically, in Joshua in the Battle of Jericho, I can never remember the woman who was a sex worker, uh who, like, she let them into her house so that way they could, like, scout out Jericho and stuff like that. I forget her
Yeah.
name. um but she, that's someone who you would not expect God to use it if you're going with an evangelical Christian view of the world.
Hmm.
So I had a similar idea, like it would be a sex worker who is now thrust into this room, and there are four doorways, and she's like spoken to by God, saying behind each of these four doors is a different version of the human apocalypse. You have to go into each one of these and find a reason for me not to inflict this
Hmm.
apocalypse on humanity.
That's pretty
Um,
cool.
I still love the idea. Maybe not as much of the Christian angle with it, but you could still do something to that, like to that effect, like
Yeah.
God or whatnot. The funny thing is, though, the thing that I got the most pushback from was the fact that she was a sex worker, and the
Right.
reason the reason is not because I chose that. My script writing teacher, like, I knew none of the lingo. Like, I didn't know the term, like, a John was like a client, right? I didn't
You're
know
right.
any
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
that shit. So he's throwing out all this shit to me. He's like, "Did you do any research?" I'm like, "Why would I? What?" And now as an adult, like, I understand, like, if you're writing about something, if you're writing a
Absolutely.
fictitious story, you have to do research on it. But, like, this is like a middle age, like a 50-year-old professor asking a 21-year-old, like, why haven't you done more research on prostitution?
Right. Right.
Like, just out of context, one of the weirdest scenarios of my life.
That's pretty funny. That's a very much the college experience, I guess.
A very what? Sorry.
Very college experience.
Yes, extremely so. But no, to bring it back to the tropes, though, I feel like I'm going into my own personal stuff a little bit too much for this.
Yeah, that's
Um,
cool.
uh, so one of your favorite video game tropes, obviously it's hard to nail down, is that, like, the why
Mhm.
does humanity deserve to live? I can very much, I resonate with that quite a bit. Now, with game storytelling getting more sophisticated over the years, what to you is the mark of good writing in a video game? Like, I look at it from someone who doesn't write a lot, where I feel like just the layman be like, "Oh, this sounds nice. This story tells good." I can think
Story's
of
good.
examples of games that I think that have phenomenal stories, but, like, a phenomenal story doesn't necessarily mean it has good writing either. So, like,
Right.
uh what to you is, like, the hallmark for video games of, like, good storytelling in video games?
God, that is so hard to really quantify because every game is meant to be played differently and deliver their stories in different ways. And I think You could really make an argument for some of the best storytelling in games being for, I haven't even played this game yet, but like games that really immerse you in the whole thing and really have fun with the narrative, like Alan Wake 2. I have not
Mm,
played it yet, but
neither have I.
if you put a rock opera bit in the middle of a game to kind of explain where the author is and why he's doing what he is, I think that's brilliant. I think that's so much fun. I like games with narratives that just when their delivery is a little bit off the wall and not what you'd expect in a video game, which is usually like, okay, we're all going to sit here and listen to this person talk, or maybe like, oh, we're all going to sit here and watch this cutscene. Video games are, obviously take huge inspiration from books, TV, movies, but they're not the same thing. You have to kind of, you know, think about, well, how am I going to do I have to make this narrative interactive? Actually, that's a better question, because there have been plenty of games where I've just read the story and been like, this is a great story. I love the way it's written. And there have also been games where it's like, oh, I really love what they did. This is so different. I think this is cool. I guess the answer is like, if however a game sets out to deliver its narrative, if it's like makes me think or laugh or cry or whatever, then it's extremely successful. It's but I'm easily manipulated. I feel very deeply, I suppose.
I mean I think that's the best way to experience stuff. I always joke around
Mhm.
where like I can't see foreshadowing. So like anytime people say like, oh, I saw this plot twist coming, I'm like, really? Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
I almost love that I'm too dense to see it because it makes everything so much more exciting.
It makes things a little more fun.
Now you mentioned something though that once to one that reminds me of something in one of the chapters of your book, a
Mhm.
chapter that I had to skip a lot of, but I do want to touch on, and I'll explain why I had to skip a lot of it. You were mentioning how like it depends on like what they're going for. Like, is the game are you doing more interactive storytelling, or is the story being told to you? And you mentioned Undertale in the book,
Yes, I sure did.
chapter 8. There I had to skip a lot of that because there was a lot of stuff about the game that I've not played Undertale yet.
Mhm,
It's a
mhm.
blind spot for me.
Oh,
But
definitely going blind.
yeah, so when I saw you starting to get into some of the details of the narrative, I'm like, I'm gonna just keep skipping pages on this one.
Right. That's a
Uh,
good idea.
so I one I found it really amusing, all the stories of erotic fan fiction, which, man, the internet is wonderful. I've that's so wild to me.
The internet really is wonderful. You think that, oh, there's no way anyone can sexualize this, and they do. And I think that's when I gave up and said, you know what, it is what it is. That's the way we are.
It really what's the internet rule that if it exists on the internet, there's like porn
Oh, if
for
it
it?
rule 34, if it
Is that
exists,
rule 34?
yeah, there is porn of it if it exists.
If there's there's a skeleton dancing, and there you go.
If
Um,
there's a skeleton, there's porn of it.
what can you talk about without spoiling Undertale? Obviously, what can you
Ah,
say about like what Undertale taught you about? Because you mentioned in the book, and I'm not trying to give away every single thing, but just for the listeners, like who can like so they know what to kind of expect with your book. What is something that you took away from Undertale about storytelling?
one thing I do like about Undertale quite a bit is that some people say, oh, it's kind of a heavy-handed game that forces like its morals on you, but that's not really the case. Undertale, you don't get its full narrative and its full story unless you complete like all three of the routes, which are the true route, I suppose. I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, but the true ending, which you know answers a lot of questions, but not all the questions. And there's like a lot of neutral endings which have like some interesting stuff in them, but they're not really extremely relevant to the final plot. It is the infamous genocide route where you
Hmm.
kill everyone and everything, like, that really kinda opened my eyes to how well Undertale tells its story, because it, if you, again, want to know the full story, why certain characters are acting the way they are acting, you will not know unless you finish that route, and that is a hard, hard route to go through. Like, the characters really are trying to stop you, because they know that if you get out, if you break containment at this point,
Hmm.
you're going to kill not just them, but everyone possibly in the universe. So, yeah, I just like the fact that yeah, it can be even though it can come across as like a little bit like goody goody or whatever or saccharine, it's not. it really does challenge you, and you don't have to take that challenge. Obviously, you don't have to be the bad person, but you're not gonna get those last answers. So make your choice, I guess.
Do you think like I think like that type of the way it was described in the book, because like I said, I have not played this, so I'm basing my perception of this entirely because I gained some more insight about this book, or about the game, excuse me, from your book, that I knew so little about the game. But the fourth wall breaking, they seem to like, to me, this is like a good use of it, because I think sometimes fourth wall
Mm-hmm.
breaking in media can be really cringy if it's
Yeah.
either overdone or done in like the bad, in a bad way. For example, actually, in this game, I can't really fault it too much because it was an early example of this, but like the Stanley Parable.
Right. Right.
I played that for the first time a few years ago, and I really didn't enjoy it.
Mm.
Because the
Mm.
whole time it was this tongue in cheek, like, you're not following the rules, aren't you? Aren't you rebellious? Are you going to be a sheep and follow the rules? Are
Yeah.
you going to be I'm like, oh my god, I get it. Like, you,
Yeah. Yeah.
like, I it was so heavy-handed for me. I hated it, but then I have to put myself also in the shoes of gamers playing it back in like what, 2009 or
Yeah. It
2011, when it was
was
like,
one of the first.
yeah, one of the first. It was groundbreaking at the time. You didn't see a game really that heavy-handedly exploring the manipulative nature of games that are, like, games really do get you, like, kind of trick you, not trick you, but like make you want to follow rules that you might not normally would follow in any other context.
Right.
And that game really explores that, which is cool. I hated it, but I understand it. And it feels like the vibe I got from Undertale, from your book, was that it does this in a tongue-in-cheek way, but never to the detriment of the game. Would you say that's correct?
No, I think when Undertale is breaking the fourth wall, like, it's not doing the Deadpool thing where it's basically mostly for laughs. Uh it's more like the character Sans talking to you directly as a murderer and a killer, and it's not really very twee. And that's funny because Sans is usually very, as I said in the book, he's the Gandalf. He knows a lot about what's going on, and he could probably fix a lot of problems if he waved his hand,
Mm-hmm.
but he doesn't. He won't. And he actually says, when things get bad, he says, maybe it's my fault because people like me, this is what happens when we don't do anything. And that kind of resonated with me as well. Like, basically saying that people who have the power not doing anything because they just want to, like, take it easy, that's you know that's a major problem. And
Mm-hmm.
he admits that he has that problem, and that's why he has to take care of you. And so that's kind of what the fourth wall breaking is like in Undertale. It's not to be twee or to be cute, it's more to scare you. And there are other characters who do it as well. Like, I won't say anything because I don't want to spoil you, because I really think you should go on blind for this game. It's pretty incredible in that regard. Some people still find it too twee or too direct, too fourth wall breaking for its own good. But I don't know. I don't think it uses that. It is a very funny game at times, of course, but when things get serious, that's when it really, like, utilizes that fourth wall, and it uses it to great effect. And that's why I say in my book, in fact, like, play it on the PC, because it does things that you just can't do on the consoles.
See, I have a physical copy on Switch. That's what I was gonna play it on, but then I did read that part of your book. I'm like, oh, I guess I gotta buy
Hmm.
it on PC now, which
Yeah,
it'll
it's
be
got to
on
be
sale
like,
for like $2 at some
I was
point.
gonna say $2 specifically. Like, it's always on sale, and even before it was like big, it was not an expensive game.
Now, this was not one of the questions I had, but something you just mentioned there made me think about it. What's a moment in a game through this game story that made you so like, it made you realize a truth about yourself you weren't expecting? It doesn't have to be like a negative, it could be a positive, it could be anything. But can you think of a moment in playing a game where, like, it made you so self-reflective that you realized something about yourself you did not know, or you did not realize prior?
This is actually more of a recent thing, and I've talked about it on Axe of the Blood God, which is my RPG podcast. Plug, plug, plug. Um, Final Fantasy 14 Dawn Trail, which is one of the expansions, the latest expansion. Uh, I didn't I didn't realize how much I was grieving for a certain thing going on in my life at the time until I played that
Mm-hmm.
game, and it was a story about, like, there was a character who was like really had to come to terms with the something that had happened to his mother. And when he finally came to terms with it and he broke, I kind of broke as well. And I realized then, like, I have been holding this in for a very long time. And I think, I didn't think it was disturbing me as much as it was. But then, if you react that strongly to a video game cue, it might be time to talk to a therapist.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That I think it's one of the best parts about gaming is, like, don't get me wrong, you can have emotional epiphanies or your personal epiphanies in other forms of media too, in
Of
books
course.
and whatnot. But like books and movies and all that stuff. But I feel like with games, because you spend so many hours, especially Final Fantasy 14, man, like
Yeah,
how you've probably logged days of your life in that game.
I have.
Yeah, and like, so when you're with a character, your character specifically, because that's it's an MMO,
Hmm. Hmm.
for that long, like that's a much bigger emotional attachment than something you might watch for like an hour and a half. No offense to movies, like I think they both have their places, and how they handle their own mediums of storytelling, but still, like I think there's a reason why games stick with people longer. I joked around,
Hmm.
and I didn't joke around, sorry. I had on years ago the voice actor Sissy Jones.
Hmm. Cool.
She's in the Owl House on Disney. That's a great show,
Yeah,
by the
yeah,
way.
that's awesome.
She was Delilah in Firewatch. If you
Oh, cool.
Yeah, fantastic. That was one of her earlier. No, she was also in the Walking Dead game. She had a lot of earlier performances than
Hmm.
that,
Hmm.
the Telltale Walking Dead. But anyway,
Right.
she talked on the episode about how she's done anime. She's been in Naruto. She's done tons of other voiceover work, but the thing she gets the most death threats for is video games,
Yeah, yeah. I
which
think
I'm
I
not
think
saying is okay, but it's
no.
it's just illustrating how much more personal a game can become because you
Yeah,
spend so much time with it.
absolutely. And of course, let's not forget the Gerbergate chuds, all the just the people who can't be mature about video games and see them as a means of delivering a story. They got to get angry about, I don't know, boobies or whatever. So it's a little disappointing when people act like that, but
Oh my god, it is. It's so frustrating.
because it goes against what I believe in as well, not just like on a political scale, but also just that I believe that video games can talk about complicated things and complicated subjects and whatnot. And people get angry when games try to explore things like like sexuality and whatnot, and I'm just not part of that. I'm not part of that scene. If you're not going to be mature, I'm very much like acting like a mother. If you're not going to be mature about this, I'm going to take it away from you. It just drives me crazy when people are just so shallow about video games or any medium, but it happens a lot in video games, let's be honest.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I don't understand the vitriol and outrage. I genuinely don't.
People are just
Um,
angry.
people just like to be angry. I I was a, I have a couple tangents I could go off with that, but that's not really part of the book, so I'll
Right,
keep it
right.
to that. But no, I'm with you on that. It's very frustrating, and especially like voice actors in general. Excuse me, voice actors in general. Like I feel like because they are so public facing, they
Hmm.
get the brunt of it, and it's really
Yes,
disheartening.
yes, it is. But it's cool that you had her as a guest. That's awesome.
Sissy was a wonderful guest. I've actually had her on twice, though. It's been like 5 years since she was last on, so maybe I'll have
Mm.
to get her on for
Time,
something else. Who knows?
time for a refresh.
Um, this is kind of a bit of a non sequitur. I mean, it's still involving games and writing and everything like that, and stuff that you've learned from video games and how it influenced your writing.
Mhm.
How did video games influence the genres you like, whether it's genres you like to write in or which genres you gravitate towards or away from? Like, how did video games influence the genres you enjoy or disenjoy?
um, I mentioned actually there's a chapter about how I read Dragonlance because it reminded me so much about video games, which makes sense because Dragonlance was, if I'm not mistaken, based on
Yeah,
a D&D
it's a D and
module.
D campaign setting.
Yeah,
It's a D&D campaign setting, I believe.
yeah. So um, I kind of gained a appreciation for fantasy after that, especially like gothic fantasy. Like I mentioned how much I loved Castlevania. I mean, when Symphony of the Night came out, I was like, whoa! But even before then, like, uh, I do say that I'm, part Carpathian. My grandfather's from that area, so I was like, oh man, that's why I love Castlevania and the werewolves and shit, because I'm part werewolf. Haha. But no, I just there's something weirdly nostalgic about that sort of uh, aesthetic, even though it's not really part of what I grew up with. It's interesting in that regard, but yeah, I loved like kind of the gothic stuff, fantasy stuff. Um, I was never a huge sci-fi person, but heck, when got more into Mega Man, I also started reading Asimov when I was younger. So
Mm.
I read iRobot, enjoyed that quite a bit actually. Uh, yeah, that's sci-fi fantasy. Basically, just reading more in general is what I got from video games. Because it's like, well, okay, well, I can't afford video games that many, or I can't play them right now because my NES is broken and or I'm grounded.
It had syphilis, as you
Has
wrote.
syphilis. Roger Rabbit. Thank you. So that's when I kind of got even more into reading as a consequence. And yeah, I would just kind of read whatever was related to the genres I was into in video games. So a lot of sci-fi, a lot of fantasy.
Mm. I feel you on that. I have my own. I haven't read like up until the last, actually, probably almost a year now. It's been almost a year since I started reading more often. But for
Mm,
like probably 20 years, I had not really read a book for fun. Like I read
yeah,
books for the show, and it's like game history stuff, which I still really enjoy. But like
of course.
I'm talking about like fiction and stories and like
Something for
just,
you.
yeah,
Just
something for me.
yeah.
I got into the Wheel of Time series.
Hmm.
Really enjoyed what I read of that. I've read the first 4 books of that. I still have obviously a lot more to go. But then obviously, like I mentioned earlier in the episode, reading Narnia. I've only seen the movies. I've never read Lord of the Rings.
Oh, really? Like, I mean, I'll be honest with you, neither have I. I have read The Hobbit. I adore The Hobbit, but the I adore Tolkien as a writer. He's one of my favorites. I think he's written some beautiful stuff and he has some beautiful philosophies about life, but geez, the Lord of the Rings just puts me to sleep. I'm sorry. Movies are great. Like,
I do not blame you. Specifically, like I remember I read about half of the Fellowship before I quit. I
yes.
got to the
Yeah.
Council of Elrond. Um,
Oh, but that's where it picks up.
well, from what I remember, the Council of Elrond is like very slow, but then after the Council of Elrond, it's like it picks up like crazy.
Yeah.
But I remember reading like the first chapter, and he spends like 2 pages describing Bilbo's fucking door. I'm
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Yeah.
Jesus Christ, I don't need it's like, come on, I get it, it's a door. But at the same time, that's part of world building, being able to describe other worlds that are not your own.
Absolutely. And like
Um,
he is God Tolkien is one of the reasons why we have JRPGs. Just
yeah,
it all started with him. I mean, obviously like he took the myths and legends from, other sources, but uh the way he put it all together and packaged it as that book, as that series, that's what we owe to so many of the RPGs we play today.
it really is crazy when you think about it. Like, if we don't have Tolkien, we don't have a lot. Like, we don't have almost all fantasy as we know it now. Like, I'm sure
Exactly.
something would have taken up that space, but like it didn't. This is our timeline. This is like what we have.
Right.
But if we don't have Tolkien, we don't have the vast majority of what we know as fantasy now. We don't have D&D. D&D was
Exactly.
heavily influenced from Tolkien. And if you don't have D&D, you don't get Wizardry and Ultima, which in turn you don't get Dragon Quest, which in turn it's just
You don't
down the
get Final
line.
Fantasy. Final Fantasy is extremely D&D. It goes, it's all ripples.
Hmm. And that is another chapter you dedicate your book to. Drop everything. Here comes Final Fantasy VI.
Yeah, that was a very, very, very influential game for me. So obviously, like, I had to have like a big ass chapter about it.
For those who do not know or have not listened to it, I mentioned at the top of the episode, go back and listen to the first ever Final Fantasy fantasy draft. Nadia was there at the very beginning.
Sure
First
was.
time she was on the show, and I've been doing it ever since. So you helped start a tradition here on the show.
All right. Well, drafts are big fun.
They're a hell of a lot of fun. So Final Fantasy VI, just a gigantic game,
Hmm.
like you said. What, I guess, is that still the game that you kind of measure all Final Fantasies by? I feel like everyone has that Final Fantasy. You're like, well, this is the one that like cemented my love for the franchise. Is that like still like the mountain that you compare everything to?
Not so much. In some ways, like yes, I love Final Fantasy VI, but also like when I was younger, yes, like of course I was there when Final Fantasy VII became like the big ass blow up hit that it was, and at first I was like, this isn't Final Fantasy, it's not fantasy, you know, the usual stupid arguments that you would probably see from any uh 15-year-old at the time, but eventually I came to love Final Fantasy VI for what it is and for like other Final Fantasies for what they are. Like I don't love all of them, but like I mean Final Fantasy VI is incredible, but so is Final Fantasy 14. As you can imagine, like it's it's 6 plus everything. So
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say like I've gotten to the point in my life where I think I can just say like, you know, I'm there's never going to be another instance where I get to play a Final Fantasy game for the first time and really have it make that kind of impact on me. That's why when someone says like, "Oh, I'm playing this game, I'm playing that game," they bring up like, for example, FF6 is a big one, or like Chrono Trigger or Shadowbringers, which is now like a big thing because the meme demo has is now up to Shadowbringers. Um, I'm always jealous. I'm so jealous that you get to experience that for the first time.
You know, that makes me think of another question for you. What's the last game that you experienced that like gave you how can I describe this? It's not a perfect one to one because I don't think us as adults will ever fully be able to replicate it, but I think we get close every now and then. But that
Mhm.
childlike sense of wonder, right? Where you're playing a game and you are just so enamored with either the world or the gameplay or the story, but it kind of like that sense of mystery and wonder once again. Like I think of the first time I played World of Warcraft, and
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I was walking up to Orgrimmar and there was literally I it you could not have it's something straight out of a fucking movie where one of the zeppelins that was going to like the other continent uh literally flew across the screen like in a cinematic opening. Like obviously it wasn't
Mhm.
intended to do that. There was no cinema, like there was no cutscene. It just happened that I'm coming out of the gorge from the orc starting area to Orgrimmar, and this zeppelin goes by and I see the full scale of the wall and I go, oh my
Yeah.
god, like this isn't like a city like you see in video games where like you walk to it and it's like five houses and they call it like or maybe 12 houses and they're like this is a city.
Yeah,
And
this
I'm
is a
like,
town.
and like a town is like four houses, of cities like 12, because you know like
Yeah.
obviously they had memory limitations, I get it, but when I saw that and like it literally was like like quote unquote life size to your care in terms of reference to your character, to scale to your character, and like you're walking into Orgrimmar and you just see the giant tower and there's literally like dozens upon dozens, like there's 50 or 60 houses, like it feels like a city.
Mhm, mhm.
That was like one of the big moments for me. Can you think of the last time you felt something that was you had that holy shit, like I can't believe this is in a video game moment?
Honestly, I've been feeling that way about Pokemon Pokopia,
Oh, okay.
which is probably one of my games of the year at this point because yeah, it's just I mean, I guess actually if you yes, I adore Pokopia, but I guess if you want to talk about that like sense of wow, holy crap, wonder, it would be probably Breath of the Wild slash Tears of the Kingdom.
Mm.
Uh
Hmm.
those are especially Tears of the Kingdom, like just having everything in front of you plus the sky, which is okay, plus the underworld, which is a big surprise. Like when I realized, like I went underground for the first time and I saw like there was a bokoblin on a skeleton horse that charged right at me immediately. And that just made such an impression because I had no idea this was in the game, number one. Number two, holy crap, what is this thing? Why is it running towards me? And it's like, how big could this possibly be? Oh crap, it's the size of Hyrule. Like that was holy moly! Like just exploring
Yeah.
the depths of Tears of the Kingdom. I I want to get the upgrade for that game and play it again, but I know I'm just going to be playing it for hours, even though
Yeah.
I already finished it. So yeah, Pokopia though, absolute shout out because at some point I realized wow, like this game has pretty much as much to do as Dragon Quest Builders 2, which is what it was kind of based around, which is also one of my favorite games of all time. So I guess it wasn't a surprise in that case, but in Tears of the Kingdom, it was a total surprise and a freaky ass one at that. I always love it when Nintendo can scare me, because when they
Mm-hmm.
do, they scare the crap out of you.
Man, I feel like an underrated, like a really underrated skill that game developers have that not all of them have, and I can't I can't always cite it all at all, but like when they're able to keep secrets from the gaming public for so
Yes,
long, because so much ends up online right away. Like I
God.
think half the mystery, half the nostalgia we have as kids who grew up in the 80s and 90s is that since we didn't have the internet, you didn't have information at your fingertips, so there was so much more mystery.
There was actually, I think I mentioned that in my book, like Mario 3 came out, and that was, still ages away from getting localized for North America. And it's like, well, in Japan, they have Super Mario 3. To hear it as a kid, you're like, wow, that may as well be Oz. I don't know anything about Japan
Yeah.
or how far away it is.
And I think that's so. I miss when games could do that. I think the last game I played that did something like that was Animal Well, like last year.
That was a good game. That was a really, like, I never finished
Yeah,
it, but what I did play, yeah, that was a really, really interesting game. I do love it when an indie comes out of nowhere and just, just blows everyone away. And that was one of them. But yeah, definitely Twilight Princess for me. Sorry,
okay,
not
okay.
Twilight Princess. Damn, I keep calling it Twilight Princess. Tears of
That
the Kingdom.
that's okay because I don't. I didn't want to say it when you said it because I don't like Twilight Princess. What I played of it.
It was worth buying a Wii for. Absolutely. I actually went to New York to get that Wii. That was a fun trip.
I need to play it. I need to eventually beat it at some point. But before we're going to start wrapping up, though, the last couple things I have, it's not necessarily questions, but just kind of uh, things I enjoyed about compliments, I guess,
Oh,
compliments
thank
about
you.
something from the book.
Aw.
I have two quotes here. One, have you ever been to concert with a bunch of nerds? If the atmosphere calls for it, introverts turn feral when the music goes hard. And you are so
Mm-hmm.
fucking locked correct with that.
I can't remember what I was referencing with that. What was that, Proto Man, or was that Sonic?
Ooh,
Someone else.
I think it might have been Sonic. I think it was a Sonic concert.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. That makes a lot of sense because that was quite recent. Actually, I went to go see a Sonic concert, and I was like, I'm not like the hugest Sonic fan, but I do like it enough. I know about it. I'm actually really good friends with the guy who writes the Sonic comic, so I know it by osmosis. And my husband's a fan. But I did go to see the concert, not really expecting what I saw because the first half was da 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 with like an orchestra. I'm like, oh,
mhm.
cool, this is awesome, I love this. Then intermission, you come back. That's when they bring out the singers, especially the singers for the what
Crush
was the
40.
latest game. They did have Crush 40, but before that, it was all stuff from Sonic, the new one, the 3D one that came out, Frontiers, which is a
Hmm.
game that I played nothing of, but I had heard, oh, it has a good soundtrack. Like, oh, okay, I believe you on that. It had a fucking great soundtrack. Like
Hmm.
these incredible vocals from like I mean, I of course you remember the time of like Alexis on Fire and everyone screaming, Nightwish,
Yeah.
just basically tribute to that. And there's some great stuff on there, and I was like, damn, everyone's just like losing their mind. Yeah, because I've been to like a concert like that. I've been to a couple of Sonic concerts like that where everyone loses their mind. And I've been to Proto Man concerts where people lose their mind because that's a good band to lose your mind to.
Hmm. So the reason it resonated with me though, so there's a convention that I go to every year called Too Many Games. It's near Philly.
Oh, I've heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah, great convention. I actually saw the year I discovered Retronauts. It was prior to you being on the show. It
Hmm.
was like
Hmm.
2013. They
Yeah.
did a panel there, and they've never been back since. So
That's too bad.
I don't know if for what reason. My guess is like I don't know. I'm the people who run that con are like they're the same company that run AVGN, so they're
Hmm.
like corporate YouTube, like corporate YouTuber. It's really weird.
Oh, yeah, yeah. There's often, people will search for for talent and say, "Hey, do you want to work together? Do you want to like do a con for us or whatever?" And it's just not the best fit because, yeah, as you say, like Retronauts is extremely like traditional uh podcasting, like no or very little YouTube presence. So as you say,
Hmm.
not exactly. Although I think they have had the Angry Video Game Nerd on quite recently.
Oh,
So
did they?
they did,
On
and I was actually on also with Pat Contry very recently.
I've Pat Contry. I've met him in person a few times. He's really nice.
Yeah, he was. We had a good time talking on the about our books, basically, on that episode. And it was quite recent, so you can look that up.
I saw that on my feed and I have not had a chance to listen to it yet. It was on my to listen, so I'm going to have to definitely listen to it tomorrow. I'll actually have some podcast listening time tomorrow, so I'll have to put that on my
Awesome.
rotation. The reason that the concert thing like resonated with me though, at Too Many Games, for years they had this thing called the Final Boss package, which they still do. Like
Mhm.
there's different tiers of buying tickets. You could get like the 3-day pass. They had the mini boss, and then they had the final boss.
Right.
Um, Final Boss usually was really cool. They've changed it a lot since. I'm not really a fan of how it is now, but back in the day, like 2014, 2015, it was essentially you would get like a satchel bag, you'd get a t-shirt, you get it all, admittance to the con for 3 days, and you would get access to the VIP party, which is a way for you to
Yeah.
interact with the guests. Like
Nice.
you
Nice.
could interact with, the musicians, the vendors, the voice actors, like any of the like the YouTubers who were there. They got rid of that
Ah.
years later, but I will never forget. I think it was like 2015 or maybe 2014. They had a rave there, and DJ Cutman
Oh.
from Game Chops
Oh yeah. Yeah.
was performing. No,
I know DJ.
it was not DJ Cutman was there. It was a dude named A Rival who was performing,
Uh huh.
and people were having a good time, would be going crazy, kind of in the same thing of introverts going feral when the music
Yeah.
goes hard. Um, and then a wedding crashed it.
Oh shit, that's hilarious.
There was a wedding that came in, and it was funny because we saw some dudes in suits and women in like bridesmaids gowns and dresses,
Yeah.
and they were kind of like, what's going on here? They weren't quite sure, and then they were there for like 5-10 minutes and they disappeared, and all of a sudden the whole wedding party shows up. And I remember vividly the bride was there dancing, like everyone was there dancing. The bride's like, what is this? And the nerdiest looking kid you can think of goes, it's a video game convention. And she goes, what?
They exist.
Just so surprised by it, like just had no idea, like nerds went that hard, and it was
Yeah.
beautiful to see. It was I left there at like 3 a.m. and they were still going hard.
That's amazing. That's like good memories for everyone involved, including especially the wedding party.
Exactly. Although it was weird seeing some of the nerds trying to hit on the bride. I'm like, dude, she just got married.
Ew.
Like,
She just got
come on,
married.
come
Come
on.
on.
At
Have some
least wait a
class.
week. No.
Have some class.
Right. The last quote I have though from your book that I want to highlight before we go into questions from Courtney and not final thoughts, before we go into questions from Courtney and plugs and whatnot. When you were talking I think this was I don't know when this was. I think this was when you were talking about your days in elementary school, but the quote goes, the ridiculous misfortunes that befell poor Mario and Luigi had made my class laugh uproariously. Yeah, this is you writing about the Mario stuff,
Yes.
which is primo energy when you're an extroverted introvert like me who wants to disappear into the background while being the center of attention. I have never felt more seen, Nadia.
I actually just learned that there is a term for that. I can't remember it. It starts with an O, like introvert. It's ridiculous, but they just came up with it, and it just describes me perfectly. Where I love. I mean, hell, I like talking to you. I like talking on this podcast. But after I'm done, I'm gonna go play ball pit for 5 hours. So I need to recharge.
Exactly. It's to me, an introvert isn't necessarily how well you get along with people in social situations. It's where you get your energy from.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
I'm like you. I'm an extroverted introvert. I love having these one-on-one conversations. I love being made to feel kind of important and the center of attention, but at the same time, I don't want the spotlight. It's a weird
Exactly.
thing. But after we're done this, I'm probably going to go play. I'm probably going to be editing the next episode of the podcast while playing NHL 20 because it's an easy, mindless game that I can play while editing an
Hmm.
episode, and that's kind of how I relax at the end of the night. So I totally understand where you're coming from with that.
No, you're absolutely right. Like, one thing I am trying to do more of, as someone who put this book out, like, I made a point to kind of make myself more vulnerable, especially after Justin asked me to do so. Um, I just am kind of hoping that people see the value in talking to each other again. As someone who is afraid of talking to people, I still think it's important that we do it. I'm really hoping that I have a chance to maybe be able to talk to younger people about the book and
Hmm.
how, writing fan fiction, just writing in general, especially in this age of AI. And so I'm aiming to talk to more people to use my voice more, as if I don't do that enough in the podcast. But just be more present, I suppose. Be more present. Be
I
more of a mentor.
I did find that interesting that when you said that, like your editor said to be do more personal, and you were nervous about that because like I've listened to you on podcasts, you tell some crazy stories, man.
You
Um,
don't even know the half of. You don't know how bad some of those stories are. There's some exclusive ones that I swore like Kat and Eric to secrecy.
I believe. I mean, I get it. There's stuff that comes out. I mean, there's a couple things. Not that there was anything bad. It's just something I didn't feel comfortable putting out on the internet that I've edited out of this episode. So I can only imagine the stuff that gets left on the cutting room floor
Oh boy.
over at Tales, Axe of the Blood God.
Yeah.
Um, no, I totally understand that though, and I think something that your book does really well, and like it kind of reminds me a little bit of like kind of like the purpose, the not I shouldn't say the purpose, but one of the byproducts, maybe a purpose is a good example of it, of your book, is like trying to get kids, younger people, like you said, you wanted this to appeal to younger audiences too, to get
Mhm.
them to have a love of writing.
Yes.
And it kind of reminds me of what the purpose of Reading Rainbow was to get kids a
Mhm.
love of reading. Right?
Right.
You can teach people how to write, but you can't get them to write well unless they want to do it. And one of I remember, I know you're Canadian, so I don't think this affected you quite as much. But one of the things in the U.S. with the No Child Left Behind thing in like the in the early aughts or whatever,
Uh-huh.
it standardized so many things that like literacy started going down because it stopped teaching the love of reading and
Right.
teach for just straight reading. Like, no, this is the benchmarks. You have to do this, and this, and this. And anything within artistic medium and enjoying art cannot be put on a rigorous set of benchmarks.
Exactly, which really, really disappoints me. And something I said actually on Blue Sky earlier, not too long ago, was that my best teachers in English, they weren't the ones who cared that we understood every line of Macbeth, just that we understood what it was about, what the characters were doing, why they were doing it. And unsurprisingly, when I had a teacher who would just be like, okay, you read this line, okay, you read this line, nobody was engaged. But when the teacher talked about like Macbeth or Hamlet or whatever, people were engaged, even if they didn't really understand what they were reading. They still liked to know about what they were reading.
Yes. And I think like almost that type of thing also not only breeds a love of reading and writing, but it also would breed better media literacy. That's where
Exactly.
you teach the building blocks of media literacy, which we desperately need.
It's so bad right now.
And
It is
this isn't
so
even
bad.
directed at a specific political group that I may have talked about earlier. This is literally across the board.
It's everywhere. It is. It's always been kind of bad, and that's something else I brought up, and that's why I said like, I mean, hell, I just gave an example from my childhood. Getting people to read has never been easy. And that's why there still is programs that are like, hey, kids, read this many books and you get pizza. And, honestly, a lot of kids love to learn to love reading through that. They don't realize, okay, reading can be fun. Oh, now that I'm, being bribed to read, I actually kind of like this. Not every kid, of course, but I mean, people like my dad are extremely smart, but they just don't like reading.
Mm-hmm. And it's important, man. My wife and I, one of the reasons I was late to this recording session, I was reading to my daughter. We read to her
Yeah.
every night because and it's stuff that she wants to be read to. We're not just like picking, like we'll try different things. If she doesn't like it, we stop. But like
Right.
the series she's into right now is called Dragon Girls, and it's
Oh, I've heard about that. It's
yeah,
supposed to be really good.
it's pretty cute. I will say after reading like 14 of the books, I get a little tired of the formula, but it's not bad. It could be worse.
It's the kind of book I would have loved if I was that
Oh yeah.
age. I would have like eaten it right up. But I can understand like we had books like that. Like when I was a kid, they didn't really have a lot for girls, but I was reading Sweet Valley Twins,
Mm.
And even that, like, it was, like, nothing to do with my lifestyle or anything I liked, but I still really ended up liking certain things about the series, and I read, like, many of the books until I got to the point where I was like, "Okay, Jessica's gonna be pulling the same shit, Elizabeth's gonna be pulling the same shit, I think I'm done."
Mhm. Mhm.
And Jessica's gonna be screwing around, and Elizabeth's gonna cover for her, and yeah, we've done this. We've done this.
All right, Nadia. Well, we are going to wrap up now. I think we've been going for a good while, and I want to end this episode as I do with all my interviews. Though it's been a minute since I've had an interview on the show, so
Oh,
this section
hi.
is questions from Courtney. Da 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 da. Da. Questions from Courtney. For those who, for my listeners, famously know my wife. Famous to my listeners, I should say. My wife, Courtney, love of my life, knows nothing about any of my guests. Absolutely
Mhm.
nothing. Her and I are the definition of opposites attract. And because of that, she always comes up with questions that I would not think to ask otherwise and have nothing to do with my guests, usually, which just makes it even that much more interesting. She sent me a few for this one, and this one, it kind of relates to fan fiction, even though it
Ooh,
wasn't intended to be. So I'm going to ask this one.
sure.
Toy Story is real life. What toy would you want to be?
Oh, that's a good question. I like that question. I there's something appealing about Rex. I always loved just, like, I always loved those animal toys. Like, Rex is the kinda toy I would have played with, like, a lot, so I think I would like to be even maybe a licensed animal toy like Cringer from
Oh,
He-Man. Like,
okay.
I think I'd like to be Cringer from He-Man or Panther, who's flocked.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I would go for, like, one of the just, like, a cool talking animal like that, like, or, like, Spirit, the horse or whatever. I would
Would
be
you
an
do any
animal toy.
Beast Wars like Optimus Primal?
I'd reserve that for my husband,
Okay.
because he's definitely, an Optimus fan, but I could pull off, shoot, who was the wolf? That was,
Oh, I don't know well enough.
oh, okay, there was like a wolf, bird hybrid who is Silverbolt, like, yeah,
Hmm.
he was cool. I would be a Silverbolt, definitely.
All right. Well, you heard it here, listeners. Nadia, if Toy Story was real life, Nadia would be a dinosaur
Go, I'd be a dinosaur, that's a good choice.
or some other animal type of thing.
Some kind of weird fantastical animal who could talk.
But all right. Well, we are going to wrap up this episode. Nadia, thank you so much again for joining me. This was a
Oh,
really
thank
fun
you.
conversation. I
My
love having you
pleasure.
on the podcast. For my listeners who may not know who you are, they've been listening to a whole hour and a half, nearly an hour and a half, all about you. But like, if they would like to see more of your work, find you online, and all that good stuff, where can the good people find you online? And what would you like to promote? I think there's at least one thing I know you want to promote.
Yes, I am. Probably my main gig is Axe of the Blood God, which is an RPG podcast about RPGs, old, new, Eastern, and Western. We record new episodes every week, and we also have a bunch of additional content. If you like my writing, in fact, if you pledge at the $5 a month tier, you will get Quest Log of the Blood God, which is a weekly newsletter that I write about, like, any RPG topic that I randomly think about. Sometimes it has to do with the news of the day. Sometimes I kind of fall back on columns, like, for example, Mild, which is Man, I Love Dragons, which is where I profile a dragon from a video game and just kind of say what I like about him because dragons are cool. You can find me on Retronauts. That, of course, is patreon.com/Retronauts. Oh, I should mention that Blood God is patreon.com/BloodGodPod. We also have a Discord. If you pledge $1, you can get access to it. It's a great community. And oh yeah, Blue Sky at Nadia Oxford. If you have any questions or want to ask me anything, I'm pretty open over there.
Oh, you left out the most important plug, your book, From Pixels to
Oh,
Prose.
from Pixels, of course. I mean, gosh. I mean, obviously, I know you'll be linking to that and whatnot, but
Yes, yes.
yes, if you want to, please support Pixels from Pixels to Prose. We have an ebook. We have a physical copy, which is coming out in June. Like, I don't know
Yeah.
exactly when, but it's coming out quite soon. You can pre-order it now, and as soon as it's done, you'll get it, and that's how it works.
And listeners, like, I highly recommend this book. I'm not just saying that because Nadia and I have recorded a whole bunch prior, and I got a review copy. Once again, I pretty sure I mentioned at the top of the episode, but this book was great. Really go check it out. I really enjoyed reading it, and I highly recommend it. I'll have a link to all of this, link to the book, link to Ash of the Blood God and Retronauts and Blue Sky, all in the show notes. So go check out all that stuff. You can find it all there. As for myself, you can follow me on Blue Sky at stillloadingpodcast.com over there. And I'm also over on Instagram at stillloadingpod over there, as well as Twitch at stillloadingpod, where I stream whenever the hell I'm able to. Just depends on my schedule. If you like the show and you want to support it and you want to see help it grow, the easiest way to do that is give it a 5-star rating or review on whichever podcasting app you use. It helps more people find the show, and it makes me feel warm and fuzzy, and I like feeling warm and fuzzy.
Yeah.
You can also support the show on my Patreon, patreon.com/stillloadingpod. For only $1 a month, you get all the episodes a little bit earlier with better audio quality, as well as access to patron voting rights, which help guide the direction of the show. And the time this episode comes out, I believe, I'm going to actually have to double check. Yeah, there's going to be a poll happening somewhat soon. Because then I do the polls quarterly, and the last poll was Trace Memory for the Nintendo DS.
Oh, interesting. Good choice.
That was a fun one. And that episode, in fact, has already been recorded. So you will hear that in a few weeks, listeners. That's all at the $1 level. For $3 a month, you get everything I mentioned prior, plus patron shoutouts, which you heard at the beginning of this episode. For $4 a month, you get all the previous tiers, plus 2 mini bonus episodes every month. And for $5 a month, you get everything. You get all the previous years, all the perks, plus access to my monthly movie podcast, which right now is called Still Muppeting. It's the only Muppet movie podcast where me and Doug from the Nostalgia Marcana podcast play the music, light the lights, and we talk about the Muppets on Still Muppeting tonight. And that one, when this episode comes out, I believe our most recent one would have been Muppets Take Manhattan.
Oh, I've seen that.
Yes, Muppets Take Manhattan, and Labyrinth is coming up next.
Ooh, Labyrinth. Now there's a movie with a crotch in it.
Yes, it is.
I won't say whose it is. Maybe it's I was gonna say Kermit, but he's not in that movie.
He's not in that movie.
So died.
Kermit Crotch. Who would have thought?
Hi-ho.
Hi, everyone. Kermit the Crotch here.
This is why I can't be on podcasts. I make people do bad things.
No, it's fun. It's fine. But yes, that is all over at patreon.com/stillloadingpod at the $5 level. But that is it. That is all the time I have for you on this episode of Still Loading. Thank you all so much for listening. Nadia, thank you once again for joining me.
Anytime.
And with all that said, listeners, I will see you all next time.